Hey friends, welcome back. Now let's explore the next time intelligence function which could be helpful for us. So what if I'm not interested in a comparison? Like for instance we have done in the last videos, so either considering the last year or maybe the last month or last quarter. Maybe I'm interested in a running sales, running total sales, or also sometimes called cumulative sales. So that means that in February, for instance, I don't want to see the sales for February, but I actually want to see the sales for January and February combined. And in March, I'd like to see the sales for the first 3 months and so on. So sometimes this is also interesting. And there are various ways how you can calculate this in Power BI, but let me show you one option to apply this and calculate the cumulative sales. To do this, I'd like to actually have a second table for that. Let me just select the table, Control-C to copy it, so it makes it easier probably to see. Click on a new page in here, press Control-V to paste it, and we got our table. So we can avoid creating the table from scratch and formatting it properly. And let's actually get rid of the total sales last year, the difference here, the total sales. So we only have actually one column with, in this case, the total sales for each of the months. And now let's figure out how can we actually create this running total or cumulative sales. Well, let's think about what do we need to do. Well, when we want to actually sum up all the sales up to a specific date, for instance here March 2020, we basically need to tell Power BI in the visual or in the calculation, just to understand that, we need to tell it, well, please, when you are in this specific row in the visual, when you have this filter context, March 2020, that don't give me the sales for March 2020, give me the sales for all the months which are smaller or equal to March 2020, meaning those three and so on. So that's how you need to think about that if you want to create the DAX calculation. And if you're in June, as an example, the same way, please don't show me the sales for June, but give me a table with all the dates prior to June, including June, up here, and then sum up the values. Now, how can we do this? Well, as I said, there are various options. One includes creating variables, but we have not talked about variables so far, so let's exclude this for now, and let's do it the following way. Let's right-click on the measures table here and create a new measure. Take a new measure here, and there is our cumulative sales measure. I simply name it cum sales. So for cumulative sales, but as I said, you can also name it running total sales or cumulative sales, depending on, it's up to you how you want to name it. It doesn't matter. More important is to figure out or understand how can we do this. So we already learned that whenever we need to change the context, we will use the calculate function. And also there will be a chapter later in the course which dives deeper into calculate, so to help you better understand how the calculate function works. But for now, just remember when you want to change the filter context. And the filter context is what is displayed inside the visual. So June 2020, for instance. And if you want to change the context, you need to have apply the calculate function. So let's say calculate. And then the expression we want to evaluate is again the total sales, in my case. You can use another measure if you want, but so far we use the total sales, so let's stick to that. Let's select it, measures table total sales, this one here. And just be careful that you don't select the others because they are named quite similar. So if I say for sales here, or total sales, you can see there's also other measures in here. So let me just select not the sales last year, let me select total sales in here. So that also works, by the way. Here you can see that now I'm only referencing here the measure itself, total sales, and not measures table total sales. So that also works, and you can use it here as well. So for measures, you don't need to reference the table name as well. In this case, as you can see here, I only display total sales. But it is exactly the same. If it's measures table total sales or total sales, it's referring to the same measure. So now, for the filter here, we need to, what do we want to do? Well, we want to remove the current context, which is in this case June 2020, and instead we want to use all the months prior. And one way to do that would be to use the filter function, as well as an additional DAX functions, for instance, which would be all or all selected. So let's actually first create the formula and then explain what we are doing. So we want to use the filter function. Filter allows us, let me just press the escape key here and see what it does. The filter function here returns a table that has been filtered. Okay, so that is what we need, because we need to have a filter table which only returns all the prior month and year combinations as well as the current one, right? For the table, we are referring to the dates table. So dates, this is fine. However, we need to make sure that we remove any kind of filter which are currently applied. And to remove any kind of filters, we need to wrap this in another DAX calculation, which is the so-called either all function or all selected. Both would work. I will go with the all selected in here, and it tells you it returns all the rows in a table or all the values in a column, ignoring any filters that might have been applied inside the query, but keeping filters that come from outside. For now, just keep your main focus on returns all the rows in the table or all the values in a column, ignoring any filters. That's the main point. So that means that if we say we want to calculate the total sales and we want to filter, in this case, the complete dates table, you can refer to dates here, all selected, in this case, dates table date, for instance, like that. This would refer to a column. I can close this now, in here. Now I have my table, and now I can give it here a filter expression. And the filter expression will be the maximum of, in this case, dates table date. So dates table date, and there it is. This one here should be less, or in this case, sorry, the dates table date here, the dates table date. Let me actually remove this for now, make it easier for me. So dates table date. So this one here should be less or equal, now we got it, to the maximum of the dates table, in this case, date. Let's close this here, and let's also close here the filter, and also close the calculate function here. And maybe to have it on a different row, just click somewhere and press Control and Enter. Oh, sorry, Shift and Enter, just to go to new line. So a little bit for formatting here for the measure itself. So this looks kind of complicated, and it is, so let's understand that. So what we do here is we calculate the total sales, and then we say, how do we want to calculate this? What kind of context do we want to calculate on? We use the filter function and use all selected dates table date. So this first expression here, all selected dates table date, this means that what we tell Power BI here is get completely rid of any kind of filter context here. So if you only would like to calculate the total sales in the context all selected dates table date, it would give us the complete 25,661,000 and so on. So that's what calculate total sales in the all selected dates table context is, because all selected removes any kind of context in here. But of course we want to have some context. We want to make sure that all the dates inside the cumulative sales calculation are less or equal to the current date we have in the filter context. And that is why we have this second expression inside the filter function. So we say, please filter the complete dates table without any filters, and make sure that inside the dates table, so this dates table here is referring to the date inside the dates table, should be less or equal, so less or equal here, to the maximum of the dates table date, this expression here. And what's crucial to understand here, which might be difficult if you see it the first time, but this maximum of dates table date, this is referring to, inside the visual, the specific row. So that means filter the complete dates table without any filters applied, and make sure that the date inside the dates table, this is referring to the all selected dates table, is less or equal to the maximum date, and the maximum date, on the other hand, is referring to each row inside our visual. So the maximum date, for instance, for September 2020 is exactly September 2020. Or on a daily level, it would be the 30th of September 2020. That's how this formula works. And let's explore that that it actually works and does exactly what I told you it does. Let's actually evaluate that, press enter. The cumulative sales is here. Let's tick this option and also click on the dollar symbol. And let's have a look. Let's go in here inside the visualization and let's tick the cumulative sales ticket. And now you see exactly what we get. So in January, we get exactly the same value, but in February, for instance, we got actually the sum. So if you sum up those two values, you get exactly this value here. And in March, we get the sum of the first three values. So you can do it if you want. You can use your calculator, sum this up, and you'll see that you get exactly the same values here. So this is this cumulative or running total sales. And you can also check whether it calculates correctly, because at the last entry here in March 2020, this is the last 22, this is the last sales entry we have. We need to have exactly the same number as the total sales, which is this one. And that's true, because up to this point, we have summed up all the prior month year combinations. So that's why, of course, at the end, we need to have the total sales amount. And then for the rest of the dates table here, of course, there we don't have any sales anymore. That's why this number is repeating, because up here, of course, up to April 22, of course, we sum up all the values before, including April, which is empty, and that's why this number doesn't change anymore. But you see that this works exactly as expected. So it gets started with the first date we have inside the view, and then it sums up the first two, then the first three, and so on. And we got exactly the running total, in this case, across all month-year combinations up to the end, which is the total value here. And we did this, if I go to the cumulative sales one more time, by simply using this filter function, which allows us here to choose at first a table, which is this one here. This table, because we use all selected, ignores all the filters coming from the visual here. So it doesn't matter whether this is April 2021, because all selected simply uses the whole dates table. But then, just to make sure that we actually get what we want, we say that the dates table or the date inside the dates table, which is referring to this one is referring to the dates table itself, is less or equal to the maximum of the dates table. And even though you might think this is the same, dates table and dates table, it is not, because the second expression here, this maximum dates table date, this again is referring to the visual we have. And this means the maximum here for July 2021, for instance, is July 2021. In this case, the 31st of July 2021, if you're considering a daily level. And this means we make sure that we only evaluate the total sales for all the dates less or equal, in this case, to the specific row we are currently in, the visual. And this gives us exactly the desired result, meaning we get the running total up to this point. Okay, so that's it for the cumulative sales. I know that was a lot, but please give it a try yourself. Try it out, write the DAX formula and see whether it works. And also please feel free to check out if you do this maybe for other kinds of visualizations. Doesn't have to be here, in this case the table, could also be here a line, for instance, a line chart if you want to do that, or any other kind of visualization. Okay, so that's it for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and as always, thanks a lot for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next video. Until then, best guys.